All right, we are live. Hello, world.
Hi there. Great to be back. So welcome everyone to another Serverless Days meetup. If you've seen this series before, you of course know already who we are. But in case you maybe don't know, Liam, if I maybe may ask you for a short intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Lian Lee. I'm one of the organizers here at ServerlessDays Amsterdam, and I am a cloud engineer / engineering manager as of beginning of this week at Container Solutions. So, and
Excellent.
my lovely assistant Marek is right over here.
Awesome, thank you so much. That looks really fluent. So, yeah, my name is Marek Kuczynski by name of intro. So you've seen me as well as one of the organizers and hosts, and occasionally also a presenter. I'm a serverless solution architect at AWS, but I'm here today fully as a volunteer to support the awesome community and a couple of talks. And we're right on time. We wanted to give you kind of the short usual introduction just from our side, what you can expect, what kind of behavior we expect, and how kind of the whole community works. So let me maybe walk you just very quickly through that story. Smooth transition. Thank you for that. And see how I move my slides. Yeah. So for those of you that everyone has been locked at home for a couple of months right now. When we were still allowed to walk freely outside, we actually had this conference called Serverless Days, right? So we've organized it last year. We were planning to also host one this year, but unfortunately that couldn't happen in May. So you're now part of the online meetup edition actually of Serverless Days, right? It's the basically a monthly meetup where we try to invite all type of different and diverse speakers. They might be AWS speakers, Azure speakers, or Google speakers, or maybe even people that work maybe with interesting technologies such as OpenFaaS or anything else that's maybe in the open source world. And we've kind of since our conference last year was a great success. This year we had to go virtual, but we've kind of made the promise to ourselves that we host one meetup every month, right? So we do it on the first Wednesday of the month. That's when you can see us, with fresh content and with a couple of speakers about serverless. Another interesting thing also is that actually, you're looking at the Serverless Days Amsterdam edition. So most of us are based in Amsterdam or somewhere around Amsterdam. In either case, somewhere in the Netherlands, but also somewhere outside of that. But if you're maybe looking actually from a different country, of course you're more than welcome to watch the Amsterdam edition, right? We don't really have borders anymore now that everything is online. But I would encourage you also to take a look at whether there's maybe a local Serverless Days community, basically maybe closer where you are, right? So you can see a little bit by the emblems over here where all of the various communities are. They're literally all over the world. The other thing that we would encourage you as well is this online conference that I mentioned. Unfortunately, it had to happen online. The fortunate thing about it as well is that you can still rewatch it, right? So you can take a look at actually some of the meetup videos. So, for example, the ones from October or from September or before. But you can also actually review our full conference on the same channel that you're looking at right now. If you're watching live, if you're not watching live, probably there's a link somewhere where you can find actually the recording as well of the conference. And, with that being said, do we have actually something about the code of conduct before we go into the agenda?
Yeah,
we do.
I think it's later.
Let me maybe start with kind of the important things. So even though it's a virtual event and we're doing this kind of through chat and through video, we would like to remind you that good behavior is still kind of what we expect from everyone, right? So we do have our code of conduct. You can find it on the URL over here, so serverless.days/NL/COC. Or you can scan if you're very modern, you can also scan the QR code over here and view it on your mobile phone, whatever you prefer. But kind of the main message is that, please adhere to the code of conduct. It's really not difficult. It's really mainly around just being a pleasant and nice person and, not offending anyone or not harassing anyone, right? So even though it's a live stream, we still would like you to be aware of this code of conduct and also behave accordingly to it. The other thing as well, let me maybe give you just this overview. I'm changing a little bit the order of the slides today, but another thing that we would encourage you to do as well is to actually take a look at our Discord channel, right? So if you've never heard of Discord, Discord is a chat solution, right? We use this chat channel. Anyone can join this channel and anyone can ask questions just in general about serverless. But we'll also use it actually as one of the ways that you can ask questions tonight, right? So if you have a question for one of the speakers that we'll announce in just a minute, please feel free to submit it over Discord. So again, scan the code or type this URL that you see over here. And that actually brings me to the agenda of the night, right? To give you a bit of an outlook as well on who it is that we'll actually have speaking today and what kind of the timing is. So we will start we're actually 2 minutes late, but I'll speed up very quickly and then we'll hand it over to Veliswa Boya, who will talk about securing serverless web applications on AWS. So that's going to be a pretty interesting talk about actually from a security angle, how you can actually build interactive apps using the AWS platform. Then roughly around 7 o'clock, we will have a break, right? Normally speaking, we would care for some drinks or for some food, but in this case, you can maybe take a small break in your house. And then around 7:10, actually, we will have another speaker, which is going to be Eduard Keilholz, and he will speak about the new Hello World serverless and distributed. I think there's something missing in that title potentially. So Eduard will tell what the title is, but his talk will be, I believe, a bit more Azure focused. So you will have a bit of both actually tonight. And then around 10 to 8 or 8 o'clock, depending a little bit on how we do with the sessions, we will also have an after party on Discord, right? So that's yet another reason to join that channel. But yeah, we will actually show you also what you. It's kind of a surprise, I think, what we do with the serverless party games, right, Leon? Or is there something you want to share about it?
It's serverless themed. That's all we can say for now.
It's a party game and it's about serverless, so you should be
Absolutely.
there. So yeah, I think.
Let me invite Veliswa to this party.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey Marek, I think your sound suddenly stopped. Hi Veliswa, first of all.
Yeah. Hello.
All right, cool. So let me see, or maybe it's my sound. Oh no, we're here. Here we go. Cool. Are we ready? Veliswa, how are you doing? How are you holding up?
Okay. I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks.
Cool. Would you like to introduce yourself or would you like us to introduce you? I know we didn't check that before. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, I will introduce myself. I've got a slide for that, so I'm good.
Awesome. All right. So if you're ready, you can just take it away.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me start then. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting me today, and thanks for attending. This is actually very exciting to be here. Marek said earlier that there are no borders anymore, and it's so true. I'm actually joining all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa today. So there's that. There are no borders anymore. I'm Veliswa Boya. I'm a cloud engineer. I work in the banking industry. I work for a bank here in South Africa. A bit about my background. I've been in IT for 20 years now. Did about 10 years of mainframe, 6 years systems and business analysis, 3 years of solutions architecture, 2 years of cloud engineering. I love to learn in public. That's my thing. Any new thing that I learn, usually I'll go and I'll write a blog about it or I'll speak about it somewhere. So that's me. I've got 3 of the AWS certifications, Certified Solutions Architect, Associate, Developer Associate, and SysOps Administrator Associate. And the big thing that I like to talk about is that I'm an AWS Community Hero. And I always brag about the fact that I'm the first woman out of Africa to be a community hero. So it's quite a big deal for me. So that's that, a bit about me. So what we're going to touch on today is, I've got my agenda here. We're going to look at 3 things. I will very quickly look at the case for serverless. And then we'll look at security principles in a serverless context. And then we'll discuss serverless architectures and security patterns. So these security patterns, how do they align to the security principles in the serverless context? So the case for serverless. We all know, we always hear about the selling point for serverless is that you don't need to provision infrastructure. It's cost effective, auto scaling is inbuilt. But I like to always look at the shared responsibility when I talk about serverless, the case for serverless. The security and compliance is a shared responsibility between AWS and the customer on AWS. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. So their job is to protect the infrastructure, and they will protect the hardware, the software, the network, and the actual physical building where your services are hosted. The customer, who is me and you, we are responsible for security in the cloud. This is though driven by the kind of service that you provision. If you go for a non-managed service like an infrastructure as a service, which would be an EC2 would be an example on AWS, you'd be responsible for quite a lot. You'd be responsible for security, for management tasks, for security configurations. But if you go for an abstracted service like an S3 or a DynamoDB, you will not need to worry about the platform or any of the management. It's abstracted. So AWS takes care of this for you. All you need to do is to access the endpoint, and that's how you will interact with the service. So having discussed all of this, which one do you think is the best to go for? You really want to move towards serverless, more abstract services where you get to offload a lot of the work and responsibility onto AWS. So that's the case for serverless. So how then does it fit into everything else? Today, we're going to talk about securing our web applications on AWS, services that you can use to do this. I have an application that I built. So this entire story today, we're talking through my actual application that I built, serverless application, and how I actually secured this on AWS. So what security principles exist in a serverless context? We all know about OWASP, who is the body that does the free articles and methodologies in the field of web application security. So what they did was to create a security by design principles. These principles guide developers when we build applications. How do we secure our applications? There is a list of about 10 principles that they've actually defined. There's a link. I can actually include this in the chat later if you'd like to just go and read, go through all the 10 principles. But today we're only going to look at 3, and the 3, I just find that they align very much to serverless applications. They're very specific to them. So we will step through these as well later. So the first principle we're going to look at is they say you need to make sure that you keep security simple. What this means is that you keep your application simple, and with that, it helps you then keep your security simple. So how you define your security as well. You're not dealing with a very complex architecture that you don't know where to fit anything. The second principle is a principle of least privilege. We hear a lot about this. This is where you only give access for the task at hand. You don't give permissions for anything that your user does not need to actually perform. The third principle is defense in depth. This is where you perform defense at every layer. When we step through my architecture later on, we'll see all the layers where we actually secured the application. So the first principle that we looked at was the keeping security simple. What AWS, I find it offers you, because the services are meant to, you've got a service that takes care of everything that you need, that you then just plug in just the services that you need to build your application. And with that, it allows for simplicity. This is the complete architecture that we're going to talk through today. This is where my application is sitting. I have fronted it on CloudFront. APIs are on the API gateway. The front end is actually on Amplify, but I don't have it here. There's my back end on Lambda. There's my data on DynamoDB, and these are all the places where I'm actually securing this application. And then this is the next principle. It's the principle of least privilege. This is where you're only assigning what's needed to perform the task at hand. I've got an example here of a policy that I have. This policy is attached to a role, and this role is assigned to a Lambda function. What I'm allowing the Lambda function here, because it needs to write an item to a DynamoDB table, I'm fine-graining the action that's allowed. This is least privilege. Fine-graining, it only allows put item on the DynamoDB table, and even fine-graining what table you're actually allowing this action on. So this is an example of our principle of least privilege. The last one, the third one of the principles that we're going to look at is defense in depth. This is where we perform defense at every layer. You'll see here, we'll go into detail on each of these services later on. The WEF, the Cognito, API Gateway, Secrets Manager, IAM, and KMS, and why and where do we actually use them. So we talked about the principles. So now we need to look at security patterns for serverless architecture. So what patterns do we actually implement to make sure that we align to the principles that we are meant to align to? There are 6 security patterns, and you will see that the architecture that we looked at before, each layer where we do the security, it actually aligns to a pattern. The first pattern that we're going to look at is protecting your web application against web attacks. And a typical AWS service that we would use for this is the AWS Web Application Firewall. And then we would authenticate access to the web application. This is where we've got your Amazon Cognito. We would control access to your APIs. That's where your Amazon API Gateway then comes into play. We'll secure storage of credentials, and that's where we'll look into AWS Secrets Manager. We'll control access to AWS resources. That is our AWS Identity and Access Manager. And then protect against data loss. This is where we're protecting our data at rest. And this is where our AWS KMS actually comes into play. So the first one of the security patterns, we said protecting against web attacks. This is where we're protecting our web application on the internet. And here the service that helps us with this is the AWS Web Application Firewall. It protects, you deploy a web application firewall in front of a cloud front, which would be what fits into your CDN, or an application load balancer, which is where you would front your web servers, or an API gateway, which is where you would have your APIs published. Your WEF protects your application against DDoS attacks, cross-site scripting, SQL injections. Now, this part at the bottom is just me digressing a bit, because this question always gets asked, I see on forums, like, when do we use a WEF, when do we use a firewall manager, and when do we use a shield? What we're going to look at today is only the WEF, but I just want to quickly just touch on where does each of these fit in, because these 3 actually are very closely aligned. You would use a WEF. A WEF operates at application layer 7 of the OSI model. It lets you define granular control over protection for your resources. A firewall manager simplifies the admin and management of your firewall rules across accounts. An AWS Shield is, it operates at a layer 3, which is your network, 4, transport, and your 7 of the OSI model. So deciding which one of these to go with. My one, I've only got the WEF because it's a low risk application. It's an application that no one cares about. So no one is going to try and do any malicious attacks. So I only went with the WEF. I don't need a shield because my app does not have high visibility. It is not prone to frequent DDoS attacks. A firewall manager is just that, just a manager. It helps you manage your admin and your definition of your firewall rules across accounts. So mine, very simple. So I've only got a WEF. So I just wanted to touch on that quickly because people tend to ask, when do I use this and which one is actually applicable where? So that's that on protecting against web attacks. I've got, these are just the rules that I defined for my web application. So on AWS WEF, these control lists that I've actually defined. I have defined 4 rules, just as an example for us to look at also today. I've got them here. There is the blocking of the SQL injections and the blocking of the cross-site scripting. And then I've got these 2 here. The country, on what's my right, I have actually just expanded just so we can step through what the country rule looks like. And I've got a count. A count rule normally gets defined as a temporary rule. You define it because you wanting to gather information. So we'll touch on that after we've looked at my country rule that I've defined. I don't know if you can see. Is this big enough? Can you see the print, the writing on these screens? So just quickly, the rule that I've defined is a country rule. It's a normal, regular rule. It says that only allow access where the IP address, the source IP address, originates from a country which is South Africa. So you allow it. That's all it says. So I have the count of a non-South Africa rule. So this count is just there to say how many others am I maybe rejecting that maybe I shouldn't be rejecting. A typical use case for this would be maybe you just want to only let people from South Africa in because that's where your customers are. It's a sales app and you know where your customer is, so you restrict it like that. But you also maybe want to check, maybe am I losing people that I should not be turning away? And that's where you would define a count. And then maybe later on you will remove your count, or you will change your allow or change a block rule that you've defined. So that's how you would define rules on the web, and that is how you would protect your application on the internet. The second pattern that we're going to look at is the authentication of access to your web application. The service that AWS has available to help you with this is Amazon Cognito. Cognito offers user pools, and it also offers identity pools. What are user pools and what are identity pools? User pools let you define scalable user directories that provide sign up and sign in. So you will include sign up and sign in functionality for your web application. That's what your user pools let you do. There's also identity pools. These are for you to provide temporary credentials to grant your users access to your AWS services. This could be a guest user who is unauthenticated or a signed in user. It lets you define federated identities, so you can allow sign in by Facebook or Google, Amazon or Apple. That is what identity pools let you do. My app, when we take a look later, you'll see I don't have identity pools. So right now, I won't be able to allow guest sign in or sign in by federated identities. I've only got user pools, but we'll look at it very briefly. So that's just, this is from the console. This is what the user pool that I've defined looks like. It's just got pool ID, ARN of the ID, and I mentioned that it does, because it's a user pool, the signups are allowed. So that is where you define it. This is where you link it to your app. My app, which is deployed on Amplify, you link it to there. And that is how you define how you're going to allow authentication for access to your web application. The next pattern that we're going to look at is how you control access to your APIs. And this is where we are using Amazon API Gateway to do all of this. There are various mechanisms that let you control access to your APIs. You can use Lambda authorizers, and this is where you actually use Lambda functions to grant access to your APIs. You can use IAM permissions. You can use Cognito user pools. You'll see with my ones, I've got Cognito user pools. There are mechanisms available depending on what type of API you've actually you've got. I've published a REST API, which is here. So I've got access to quite a little bit more features than an HTTP API, because REST API right now has got more features than an HTTP API, but HTTP API will get there as well. So what I have for my API, I have Cognito user pools for granting access. I've got API keys that we're going to look at. So let's just go and look at what I've defined for my API. So this is my API on the API gateway for my application. I have my authorizer here where I've got my Cognito user pool granting access to the API. And I mentioned earlier that I've got API keys. API keys tend to work very closely together with the usage plans. So just quickly before I flip to the next page, what are usage plans and what are API keys? How do they play together? So usage plans, you use them to meter your API usage. You can either define throttling, and here you say you define the maximum requests that you're allowing per second, or you can define a quota. So with a quota, you're saying this is the number of requests that I'm allowing per API key over a period. So a period can be a day, a week, or a month. My one is a month. We're going to see later when we look at it. So that's that. We're going to look at usage plans very quickly. That's the usage plan that I've defined. Mine, I'm not defining throttling. I've just got a quota where I'm just saying 1 million requests per month. And that is what I'm defining for my usage plan. And the next, when I flip to the next screen, you're going to see where I'm now linking that usage plan to the API key. So I'm saying the developer that's got this API key, they are linked to this usage plan, and that's how much requests they can perform per month against this API. So that's how you can actually control access to your API. So you're protecting your application in that way as well. If there are any questions at any point, I'm not able to see the chat here, but you can just stop me and then we can chat. The next service that we're going to look at, the next pattern is securing of your credentials. Best practice is that you don't store credentials inside your code. We all know this. So AWS has got a service known as Secrets Manager that helps you with this. Secrets Manager protects secrets of your applications, your services, and your IT resources. It's a pay-as-you-go service where you pay for secrets managed and the number of Secrets Manager API calls made. It lets you rotate your secrets safely, so you don't need to deploy your code just because you rotated a secret. It integrates very well with RDS, the relational database service, with Redshift, with DocumentDB, and it offers built-in rotation for these services. So rotation is built in, but it's optional, so you can actually say whether you want it or not. My diagram that I've got here at the top is just, I'm just pointing to the services that it actually integrates with. With an Amazon RDS, your rotation is actually automatic every 30 days. So that's your secrets manager. And then we're going to look at a secret that I actually defined just so we can look and see what they look like. So I've got this secret that I've got for my SQL. That is where all my database connections I'm defining here. And let's just expand it and see how it actually, what it actually looks like. So it will have an encryption key. This key lets you protect your secrets while they are on Secrets Manager. Secrets Manager will provision this key automatically for you, but you are allowed to go onto KMS, which is another service that we're going to look at later, to provision a key if you want to. But if you do that, you're now going to pay for that key. This, if you let Secrets Manager provision the key for you, it's free. So that's the key that it's using to protect your secrets. That's just the ARN of the key, and rotation I've disabled. I mentioned earlier that it's actually optional. You don't have to enable it. So mine is disabled. And then down here, I just didn't copy the entire thing, but when you define a key on Secrets Manager, you actually get an SDK, which you can then insert in your code, and this will, when you're wanting to retrieve your secret, it just helps you. It's code that just shows you how to do that. So that is what you will get when you define a secret, and best practice is to have your secrets, your credentials residing on Secrets Manager and not inside your code or anywhere else. The next service that we're going to look at is IAM. IAM helps you control access to AWS resources. We had that policy that we stepped through earlier where I had that inline policy of DynamoDB. We're going to look at it again in more detail. So what AWS IAM lets you do, it lets you define granular permissions to your resources. It integrates with many AWS services. So it will integrate with an EC2, with your database services, with a Lambda, a very long list of AWS services it integrates with. It's free to use. So I mentioned earlier about a role that I have assigned to a Lambda function, and that this role has got policies attached to it. And this is the role now. This is my Lambda functions role, and it's got these two policies attached to it. The first policy, the AWS Lambda Basic Execution Role, is it's an AWS managed policy. It's a basic role that you actually get when you define your when you create your Lambda function. And then I've got the inline policy, which I've then gone and directly included against this role. And what this policy does, we're going to look at it in the next slides in detail, what it actually does. So those are the two policies that are attached to my role, and the role that's assigned to the Lambda function. So only the policies that you need for that function to be able to do what it needs to do, nothing over and above that. So this is the first policy that we're going to look at. This is the Lambda execution role. This is what the policy looks like. It's basic. All it does, it allows it to create log groups, because you want to store logs and log streams inside your log groups, and then just to write events to your log stream for all resources. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else but that. And then the next policy that we already actually looked at this already. This is the one that controls what you can do to your DynamoDB table. It's the inline policy. It's a put against a table and that specific table. That's all it does. And so this is you controlling access to your AWS resources. The next one, and this is the last service that we're going to look at that helps you protect your web application, is the KMS, which is your key management service. This helps protect against data loss. It's a managed service that makes it easy for you to create encryption keys. It will manage your keys for you. It lets you control the use of encryption across a wide range of AWS services. It's secure and it's a resilient service. This is just a key that I've actually just created inside KMS. It's a very basic key. I don't need anything over and above, just a symmetric key, because all my data resides on AWS. And so I'm using the same key for encryption and decryption. And what else can I highlight here? Yeah, so that is just a basic symmetric key that I've defined. And this is a key that I'm using to actually protect my my data at rest. So my DynamoDB table will be protected using this key. So just in conclusion then, we've got privacy regulations like your GDPR that place an imperative on us to make sure that we limit information loss. There's a study that was done by Accenture last year, and what came out is that an average number of about 145 security breaches were conducted in 2019. This is an 11% increase in security breaches since the year before, and a 67% increase in security breaches in the last 5 years. So it's becoming very imperative that we secure our applications as they are on the internet. And what we've just looked at is how on AWS you can actually take advantage of services that are available there that actually help you do this. And that's that from me. If there are any questions, I'm happy to discuss.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the nice talk. It was very interesting to see actually a serverless talk about security, which we see is kind of like a rare combination, right? Like people talk about security or they talk about serverless, but combine it, I think, is actually really powerful. So thanks a lot for that.
Sure.
I had actually one of my own questions, if I can maybe start with that one to build on kind of a bit on your talk. So, what would be, I saw a lot of really good advice regarding a couple of specific things that you can do, how to secure APIs or apply encryption or things like that. Are there any like guides or any like good resources that you actually found, maybe out in the open or within your company, where you could kind of learn more and, maybe build a security strategy or something else like that? What's kind of the learning that you had there?
AWS actually has a lot of resources available that help guide you as to how to protect your applications. And there's a lot of best practice that actually published around that. I like to combine what AWS provides with what bodies like your OWASP actually give as guidelines, because they are the authority. And I just combine those two together. But AWS has got quite a lot that's actually available.
Cool, awesome. So, and just curious, because you triggered me a little bit as well, and then I'll actually get to a viewer question. So, because you mentioned OWASP is, for those maybe that don't know, it's kind of like a top 10 of web vulnerabilities, right? So things like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and those type of things. How does that actually work? Because OWASP was, of course, written, before serverless was around. Of course, it's updated regularly, right? So it's not that it's an old standard, but it's, of course, intended not really for serverless in mind. So what's kind of your opinion on, do all the risk, for example, for something like OWASP appear, or are some maybe more important, or, I know this is a deep question as well, right? We didn't rehearse it, but just curious what you could share a little bit.
What I actually found, okay, so I watch a lot of AWS security talks. And this talk of mine and me building this app was actually inspired by another AWS talk that I saw. And what I'm finding just listening and reading is there are the OWASP principles, but some of them don't really relate to serverless so much. That's why I picked out just these 3 for today, because these ones seem to really closely align to serverless. There's about 10. I just need to go through them again, but a lot of them, as I was reading through, they don't really align very much to serverless. So yeah, they've got all of them out there, but not all of them align.
Excellent, great. No, thanks a lot for that. So basically what I'm hearing is, check some of the white papers, some of the videos, and there's actually a lot of material that's available there already. Awesome, great.
Yes. I see there's a question in the chat. Sorry, here.
Oh yeah, let me read it actually for you. I know you can see it as well. So Ivica, I hope I pronounced it well, is asking, hey Veliswa, thank you so much for the talk. I definitely enjoyed it. Can you share a bit more on how you are guarding your API key from usage plan? As I understand, your application is running in S3 with CloudFront in front of it. And if the API key is there, it will be visible. Or am I wrong? Curious what you think.
My application is actually on Amplify, and it will not be, my API key will not be visible. It's not visible, but I can just go and check again, but it's not visible. But it's on Amplify. I don't know if that would actually change this question at all.
Yeah, I'm just thinking a little bit as well. Maybe we can get a bit more info from Ivica about it, right? So we'll monitor the chat for that. But yeah, maybe it gives you a bit of an opportunity to talk about like API. I'll use the opportunity to change the question a little bit. So how do you actually go ahead and maybe secure or manage these type of API keys, right? I don't know if you're, maybe from professional or private context, if you maybe have hundreds or tens of them. Are there any best practices, any other things? Can you automate these type of things or something like that?
Okay, I know if you want to, because my one is a small application, I just need one API key. But if you wanted to scale, that is when then you have to think a little bit more around how you define your API keys next to a usage plan. Because if you saw in my usage plan, I had my quota. So now if I've got a couple of developers sharing the same API key, they will very quickly reach that quota. So if you're wanting to scale this, you're going to have to try and think a little bit carefully around how you define those API keys next to a usage plan. But yeah, you can actually scale it if you want to.
Okay, great. And we got I think the comment back that said question was a misunderstanding. So I think we clarified it, or at least we it's I think you already also confirmed that the key is not shared there whatsoever. So
yeah.
If there's still any other follow-up questions, let us know. Maybe in the next break we can get back to it, or on Discord. That's what also an opportunity to maybe highlight again. Please join our Discord channel, right? That's where you can get to ask questions, and it's also proof that these sessions are live, right? So hope to see you on Discord as well. I think those were the questions for now, right?
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna go to the Discord as well and see.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you don't mind, maybe if you have the time, to hang around there in case maybe people still come up with questions, that would be amazing. So you can ask even more questions if you want to.
Yes, I'd like to listen to Eduard's talk as well, so I'm gonna hang around.
Okay, awesome. Great.
Sure.
Cool. So then we will go into a break, I believe.
Okay. Okay then.
And
great.
So enjoy yourself, walk a lap, get a drink, whatever the drink might be. And as we're seeing, I think very, very smoothly right now on the bottom, we'll continue in like 13 minutes, right? Roughly 10 minutes. So
exactly. So yeah, see you
compliment
then.
To the video technician today. This is great stuff.
I know. I'm so good. I should do something in tech. Cool.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so much, Veliswa, for the talk.
7:10.
I think she's still here, but thanks so much for the talk.
Left.
And see you after the break. All right.
Exactly. Bye.
Cheers.
I had my mic muted. That was not very smart.
Good
So,
evening,
hey everyone. Yes, Marek had a whole glow up in the break. No, Marek had to unfortunately leave, but we were able to get the amazing Stace to join us instead. So I'm not too sad about it. Hey, how are you doing, Stace?
I'm not too bad. It's an interesting one to try and get everything set up in 5 minutes and do your makeup and hair at the same time.
Wow, you did a fantastic job, I have to say.
She always looks amazing.
Oh, thank you very much.
You should follow her on Twitter, and then especially every Friday. That's a treat.
Reverse Casual Friday. It's awesome.
And you have the best brooches always.
I say this is my special Halloween brooch. This is a nice new one, but it's I think it's going to be one of my favorites.
Yeah, I can see why. So, Stace, why don't you introduce your new best friend and our new best friend, our next speaker?
Yeah, so everybody, we've got Eduard coming up now to give us a talk. And I first met Eduard a couple of years ago at Techorama when we were still allowed to see each other in person. And since then, we kind of stayed in contact. He became an MVP on exactly the same day as I did this year, just a couple of months ago. Congratulations, virtual high five.
Yeah.
And he's going to be talking to us today about the new Hello World, building a tiny URL generator in the Azure environment. So, Eduard, take it away.
Yeah, let's go. So that's there was some confusion about the title, and this is actually the title: the new Hello World, and then serverless and distributed. So let's go. Stace already told you that we're working on let's say URL minifier, and this is, in my opinion, the new Hello World, because it's a really good opportunity to get yourself familiar with serverless, because you can create a very simple project that minifies your URL and create another endpoint that when you hit it, redirects you to that same URL. And you can also build some kind of management environment for just that. And you can expand that and make it even better as you go. And it's a really good opportunity to learn. So yeah, I want to take you away with my project. So what I did is I actually built a URL minifier right here. So this is my example project, and as you can see, you cannot minify your URL until you're logged in. And that's because I want this management environment to be available for just the links that you create. So if I just paste in, let's say, a URL of my own GitHub repository. First log in, of course. Yep, there we go. And then I paste in a URL, and of course, the server then returns a short URL. And when I use this one in my browser, it will immediately redirect me back to my GitHub repository. So that's in short what we're going to do. And I want you to take you through my project and how I approached some stuff. And as you can see, there's also a maintenance button here. And in that maintenance button, you will see all the links that I created yet. So I just created a Trump link. Just this was a demo. And you will see the link that I just created to my own GitHub repository. You see one hit because I already touched that short URL once. And as you can see, I can open it and change the code to let's say GitHub. This one needs to be a unique code, of course, because else if someone else used it, it's not available for you anymore. And then you can save it. And then you have basically for the end.me/GitHub. And then again, this one will redirect to my GitHub repository. So this is basically what we're going to build. And of course, there are some challenges. But first, let me introduce myself. For the part that Stace didn't already, I'm Eduard Keilholz. I live in Rijswijk, which is a small city just next to The Hague in the Netherlands. I work mostly on Microsoft development stack. I love C# and the Azure cloud, and I have some strong affinity with Angular. Yeah, you can see my social handles in the left bottom. So let's dig into the system architecture that I created for this minifier. First, there's an Azure Functions project, and this Azure Functions project is used as what I call in the project the resolver. This one runs mainly on the for_the_end.me domain, and it expects / and then the shortcode. This Azure function will then try to validate the shortcode, and if it doesn't fit the regular expression that it expects, it will ignore the shortcode, or else it will look the shortcode up and then redirect you to the endpoint URL. If either the shortcode is invalid or it doesn't exist, then it will redirect you to the maintenance page at which you can create new links and maintain. I also worked on a core library, which is available on NuGet. You can use that. Actually, I came to the conclusion that this was not a really good idea at development time, because as soon as you make changes to the core, you have to publish that to NuGet and then drag that into your development project, and that cycle takes way too long when you're in development stage. But now the core project is pretty stable, so it works for me. But that wasn't the best solution possible. I also built in this nice cache layer to make the response on the resolver project as quick as possible. So as soon as I look up a shortcode from the repository, I will then store it in cache. And when it exists in cache, the cache layer will return it instead, which is faster than my table storage. And of course, I took the table storage in Azure because it's very cheap. I could also have gone for example, Cosmos DB or SQL Server, but that's more expensive. And especially with the cache layer on top, this solution is fast enough for me, especially for the demo purposes. And then I use the event bus as well, because when a shortcode is hit on the resolver project, I want to track that to be able to analyze how much hits I got on a certain code. And I even took that a little step further, and I was able to produce graphs, hourly and daily graphs for each and every shortcode. And that is again because this project is really suitable for expansion and exploring and maybe learning your learning serverless skills. So that's one Azure Function project, and you saw that I also have some kind of maintenance environment, and this maintenance environment is built in Angular because I have this strong affinity with Angular. And that's running on app.for_the_end.me. And this one also uses an Azure Functions project, and I created a different Azure Functions project for that. I will explain that later. And this one contains a lot of HTTP endpoints that you can create short links with, maintain them, delete them, and find analytics. But also, I created a couple of timer functions to do some cleanup stuff for short links that are expired, and aggregation stuff that I use to fetch the data for my graphs. So, and the last one is this Azure. this maintenance part is, of course, under authentication. So what I did there is I created an ABRAC in Azure Functions, and in Azure, and I used that one to authenticate from the Angular front end. It authenticates for you. The ABRAC then provides a JOLT token, and the Azure function will validate that JOLT token. And now when everything is in Azure, it's fairly easy to validate the JOLT token that comes from a familiar ABRAC. But I chose to take this one a little bit further because you can see my app registration here. But if your app registration is not does not come from Azure, but for example from Auth0, or for example you have Google, or you name a token provider that provides the token for you, it's really hard to validate that token from within your Azure function. You have to do that manually. So what I did there was I created my own JOLT token validation binding in Azure Functions. And now you first have to become a little bit more familiar with JOLT tokens and know what's important and whatnot. And the first thing that you need to do when you validate tokens is you need to make sure that the signature is valid. And the signature is basically a signature under your JOLT token, and it's provided by the server, and it allows you to validate that the server that you actually expect to have handed out the JOLT token actually did, and it's not some kind of other server in between that provided the token. And then you have a part called the audience and scopes and issues, and they're less important than the signature, because the signature is way more important. But the audience can be used to validate whether a JOLT token is meant for your API. For example, this API that I'm working on with the minifier, I can register that API on my token provider, and I can ask the audience to be inside that token when you request it. And then you can also, of course, validate whether the audience is available in that token. So if you want to see my JOLT binding, you can go to this, of course, minified link. The JOLT binding and the source code is there as well. The first link is the source code, and the second link is the NuGet package. But let's just dig into my Visual Studio project that actually, in which I actually created this JOLT token. And you can see that this function validate token is the actual code that is executed to validate a function. And if you don't have this code normalized, you have to run this code for each and every HTTP request in your Azure Functions project. So what you can do if you use this this binding, you can use your configuration of your Azure function to configure the expected issuer, expected scopes and audience, and so forth. And this huge function will grab the JOLT token from your HTTP request, your incoming HTTP request, and validate it according to the configuration that you set. Now, going back to my presentation, this is the NuGet package. You can grab this JOLT token from NuGet. I actually updated this picture today, so version 1.3.0 is very accurate as of today. And if you then start writing an Azure function in C#, you're with an HTTP trigger, of course, your binding will look like this. So basically you say, I want a JOLT binding, and that JOLT binding will return an authorized model. And if it doesn't, the authorization of the JOLT token failed. So basically, if the validation of the token fails, you will receive 500 with a detailed error of why the validation failed and what you can do to fix it. And if the validation succeeds, only then your function will run and the authorization information is available. This authorization model now contains only the subject, so that's basically the user ID and I don't know, 3 other fields. I don't know top of mind. Let's just dig into that. The subject and of course the name of the person logged in. So again, subject is the user ID of as the user is known at the token provider. So this one is actually very fun to play with. If we dig into the maintenance project itself, you can see that I have a lot of 5 HTTP triggered functions, and you can see that all those functions contain this jolt binding, so that I can validate that a request is actually valid from an authorized user, and I can also filter data depending on this user's subject ID, so that I can distinguish users and links and their links from other users' links. All right, we will dig into the project a little bit deeper soon. Then what's also fun to play with is dependency injection, and dependency injection is around in Azure Functions for quite some times. And I found it interesting to find out when is the good situation in Azure Functions to use dependency injections or not, because at first I only saw advantages, and those advantages are still valid. But dependency injection also sometimes bloats your function execution, because you may drag in a couple of services that you don't need for that specific call. So this project is kind of broken apart into 2 kinds of functions, mainly the maintenance functions doing maintenance in the background. So that's the aggregation functions and the cleanup functions. They run without dependency injections, and they use the input and output bindings that you already know from Azure Functions, and you can see that in this example right here. This is an aggregation function that aggregates all hits of a certain short link code on a daily basis, and that stores that into a separate cloud table, which is Azure storage table. Yeah, the best way to do that, in my opinion, was just to use the native input and output bindings. But sometimes it's a good idea to use dependency injection, and your function looks a little bit different then, because you can see for this function the class is static, the run method is static, and when you use dependency injection, you cannot use that anymore, because you need a class constructor to do the dependency injection. And that's mainly because the biggest difference between dependency injection in Azure Functions and, for example, an ASP.NET project is that you can only use constructor injection in Azure Functions, where you could use injection in your controller for an ASP.NET project, for example. So you need a constructor to do the dependency injection for you, but now you have a lot of advantages, and that's because now I can use my core project, which I've written in that NuGet package, and reuse the services that I created there in this project. So in case I want to create a lot of these this projects with the same behavior, I can just reuse that package and use dependency injection to leverage the services inside it. And also, of course, dependency injection allows you to mock services, and yeah, you have a greater testability. Yeah, and you have control over the lifetime of your services. So that's a really good advantage. For bigger projects in Azure Functions, I tend to always use dependency injection, but it's good to find a reason for yourself and know why you want to go there. And then last but not least is that I think it's fun to, of course, serverless is for 90% in the cloud, unless you run this nice Kubernetes cluster at home. But whether you're using AWS, Google, or Azure, you will see that compute is relatively expensive and storage is relatively cheap. So what we used to do like 10 years ago or something is we created a huge amount of databases with relational databases, and we try to normalize the data, because if a record exists twice, that was really bad. But now we live in the cloud, and the way we think of data now is way different. We don't normalize data anymore. We just copy it, process it, store it somewhere else, and then process that again and store that somewhere else, and we produce huge amounts of data. And that is mainly because the compute is expensive. So for example, if I want to aggregate all the hits that I get on a certain shortcode to produce graphs that nicely show the amount of hits at an hourly and daily basis, it's way cheaper for me to run that function only once an hour or once a day, process that data, and then store it somewhere else. And when the data is requested, get it from a different table than the original hits, where a couple of years ago we would all store that in the same table in a SQL Server and either use a sophisticated query or a view or a store procedure, if you like, to produce the data at real time. So what I did there, I introduced a timer function that will do the calculations for me on an hourly and daily basis for both the hourly and daily graph in my maintenance window. So when I receive a hit or on a short link, or even better, when I receive a couple of hits on my short links, and these functions run, they spread the hits out and then aggregate it over an hour or over a day and store that in separate tables. So that means that I have three separate tables. One is for each and every hit, and there's an Azure function with a timer trigger running for me each and every hour, and storing those hits in the hour table, and the same daily, but then in the day table. And then a couple of days later, those hits will be removed by another timer triggered function, which will remove the hits older than X days. So I thought that was something nice to share. And then also what's cool is that this was actually the first time for me that I got to play with GitHub Actions. So as I already mentioned, my entire project, both the core, the maintenance project, and the front end is open source on GitHub, so you can have a look there. And especially for the maintenance API, I created this very nice GitHub Actions workflow, which provisions my entire architecture in Azure just prior to installing the newest and the latest version on it. So I found that was a very cool thing to share. And let's go there. So this is my GitHub workflow. And I have, of course, a built-in test, which just builds and runs all the unit and integration tests for me. And I have a deployment to test and a deployment to production. And when you dig into that, you will see that I built the stuff, provision infrastructure, and in this case on Azure, because I'm a Azure guy. So I run the I run the ARM template usually twice. For this project, I run I release the new version of the software, and then I rerun the ARM template, but then in a complete mode to get rid of every resource that I don't need anymore. But this is just a simple workflow. It's provisioning infrastructure. It will then compile my code and deploy it. And of course, because this is an open source project, you can just go to the code, dig into the workflows, and find out how to do that yourself. It's fairly easy and it's fun to play with. So show me the code. These are all the links to the projects. Once again, the core project that one is handling all the maintenance work for me. There's a maintenance API. This maintenance API basically contains two APIs. One is the resolve API, and the other one is the actual maintenance work. So that's adding and maintaining and removing links. And of course, the Angular front end. So now let's dig into some code. You already saw this jolt binding, so I'm going to skip that and dig into the core project. This one contains a couple of services, but of course the most important ones are the short links. Let's go to the short link service. So what I did here is you can see that I used the dependency injection. I inject a repository in the cache service, and basically these are very short and straightforward functions to create a short link, read one from a repository, update it, and you can see that I also sent the owner subject ID to make sure that I'm only able to maintain short links as the owner and not as somebody else. There's a delete and resolve. Once again, just go ahead and clone the repository and find out yourself if you think this is interesting. And then the maintenance project, that's the last one. I already told you there's two projects. One is the maintenance project and one is the resolver project. Now, why is that? Maybe someone can help me in the chat, but I couldn't figure it out. This resolver function is an HTTP triggered function, and you can see in the route that I have this question mark right here, which allows me to have some sort of wildcard in the route. So
I just added the two of us back. So we had a small technical issue with Eduard, and we're trying to get him back online. But he probably noticed that he.
I imagine he's got to notice this bit, yes.
He's on Discord, so I'll try to reach him there. Well, he was on Discord. He was monitoring it. I'm not sure who he is, though. That's a bit of an issue, unfortunately.
Always a fun part.
Okay, so let's see.
Yeah, thank you.
Lacey, you're
very
supposed to
much,
tell a
Manu.
joke. But a funny one, please.
Oh, yeah, funny joke. I can't do funny jokes, especially not on the spot. You know, a horse walked into a bar. The barman said, "Why the long face?"
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Did you see where the hackers went? I don't know, but they ran somewhere. I know. I'm so sorry.
For the Doctor Who fans out there, what are the weeping angels' favorite part of a car? The blinkers.
Oh, good one. See, it was actually a good one. I know, you're surprised, right? I didn't know either that it was gonna be good. It's the one joke that I have, though. Like every time something happens and I'm like, oh, I need to tell a joke to like ease. This is the only one I have. So there you go.
We need Jimmy Engstrom here. He's fantastic for puns.
Yeah, I think we might need just like some jokes and puns in our pockets just in case, something like this happens. So
yeah, just so that you got to fill up some airtime.
Yeah, exactly. It's like an entire radio show, pretty much. All we need are those like soundboard thingies. Oh, great! Lame jokes. Fantastic. That's exactly what we need.
We appreciate the help, Manu.
So, oh, Mark, thanks so much. Mark is apparently finding our jokes very funny. So, okay, so right now we are not in contact with Eduard. He might have just dropped off the face of the earth, just like that. I'm just gonna try and reach him again through email or something. I think some people still use that, right?
Apparently, sometimes.
Where did you reach out to him?
I reached out to him on private chat on Twitter.
Oh, Twitter. Okay, cool. So you got Twitter covered. So I'm just going to see if I can email him. But I mean, he probably noticed that he's not in this call anymore, and he probably is trying to get back. I mean, he still has the link, so I'm guessing he has probably bigger issues right now.
Yes, it's. I imagine so.
Yeah. So I guess. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm guessing that he's probably not on Discord anymore, because I'm guessing if he dropped out of here completely, he's possibly not got an internet connection.
That's what I'm thinking as well. I mean, if he has access to a browser, he would probably be able to join something. Okay, I'm going to message him anyway. Just let him know that we're still here.
Oh, the joys of being live.
Okay. Well, I mean, this has been an exciting night because also this has been the first, like, oh my God, we need to get something like done really quickly of the night. Okay, so I'm just gonna message him and then I guess so. We can also just move on to the games. I wouldn't mind. Let's give him like 2 more minutes to.
Yes.
Oh,
that sounds
Mark's
good.
asking how my. So, I completely. So this is the thing is, my husband came over and gave me one for our anniversary, and I managed to hook this up to some cool sounds. But then I kind of forgot to do that for the meetup because I got a little bit swamped at work. But I'm trying to get the sound routed through my computer, because right now I'm basically playing the sound on my speakers and then I hope that my mic picks it up, which it doesn't do often because this microphone is very good. Too good. It's too smart. It realizes that this is not someone speaking. So yeah.
Maybe Google can actually use that, because my Google speaker goes off all of the time for no reason when the TV or radio's on.
Has it ever happened to you that you accidentally like had someone watch you, or like you forgot to turn off the camera or forgot to turn off the mic?
So far, I'm pleased to say not. I've managed to avoid that. It's, I think it's kind of, we don't have anything really on camera connected to the net per se. It's just when we're in video calls at work and that kind of stuff. And then it's kind of really, the camera I've got now is in my office upstairs. So if I'm eating lunch, it's not there. The only thing that people could see is the TARDIS on the chalkboard behind me.
Which is pretty awesome already.
It's I like my TARDIS. You may have guessed I'm a little bit of a Doctor Who fan. And
you only mentioned it twice in 5 minutes.
3-4 times. It's I'm sure that Manu can put something in Discord about how much I annoyed him with Doctor Who when we worked together. But I did manage to get one of my co-workers hooked, so I take that as a win.
Sweet. I got my brother hooked. And actually, I signed up for a VPN now, and I've discovered that in Netflix UK, there's all of Doctor Who. All Doctor Who episodes are there. Well, the first 9 seasons of New Who, at least.
Yeah. Right, so we have Amazon Prime, but that's only got from season 5 to season 10, I believe.
So those are the like post David Tennant episodes, I'm guessing.
Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi.
So
Tennant is the best.
Sorry, yeah, no contest. I'm rewatching the Martha series. I'm not entirely sure which one it is. So one episode has Andrew Garfield. Then there's an episode with, the last one is with Tom Ellis. It's so good. There's so many famous people in that show. In that one season. It's amazing. Yeah.
Lucifer's rather different in that episode.
Oh my God. Did you see the current season episode, the last episode of Lucifer, like the new ones? I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, just stop right now. That was horrible. That was so bad.
I've not got up to the new series yet. We have so much stuff to watch. We binge watch Lucifer for a few days, and then we move on to something else, and then later we come back. So I'm a little bit behind.
It's good background entertainment. You don't have to get too invested. So yeah, it's good. It's fine. You can still watch the new season. Don't watch the last episode because it's so bad. It's really horrible, and you'll be fine.
What's the new season just out to the last episode? I bear that one in mind.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think Edward's coming back, unfortunately.
No, I just got a message from him. It's just coming back. Working
he's
on
coming
it
back.
now. His total internet is down. It's not a Wi-Fi issue. Wired connection's not working, and Wi-Fi connection's not working.
First, I thought it would maybe he got an entire maybe his entire electricity went down. He's back.
Hey, welcome.
You made it.
Apparently, even wired connections crashed.
Oh no. Well, we're glad that you're back.
Yeah, me too. Tell me about it.
Do you want to finish the rest of your talk?
I don't know where I
Because people were like, "Oh, it's been good. So been good up till then."
Yeah, I think we may have lost Edward again.
Oh no. So where is he based? Rijswijk?
Yeah, I believe that kind of area.
Yeah,
I wonder if
seems to be quite a rural area. Oh no, I don't. Sorry, Edward. I don't think it makes sense for you to continue for today because it seems like you have still more issues. Don't use Ziggo, I guess, is my advice, or KPN. I don't know which one you're using. Yeah. He left off with his GitHub links. I think we can get him to, because he also already was joining Discord. So we'll just have him come back to Discord so you can drop all the links in there and you can also ask him questions. So yeah, I think we'll close it for tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's probably the best idea.
Yeah. But still, I mean, thanks everyone for joining us. These things happen. We're live, so this is the nature of the game. Exactly. Especially ad hoc debugging in production kind of tech.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to see stress, try this.
Exactly. So we're gonna be going over to Discord and we're gonna hang out in the networking session. And if we find enough people, we'll play some party games. If not, we'll just. I'm definitely ready for some wine. So let's meet over there and get drunk because we need it, because this was a really interesting day. Right, Stace, do you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, look after yourself, everybody. I think that's the best thing I can say today.
That's very good advice.
Be kind to yourselves, look after yourselves. Have a great evening, all.
Fantastic. So yeah, don't forget that we still have our last meetup of this year in December. Sorry, I just remember that I have some slides. So first Wednesday of the month. Don't forget that will be our cadence from now on, or since like a couple of months. So first Wednesday of the month, we have the meetup events. And if you want to get in touch with us to speak or to help organize, you can do the tech if you want, or you have any ideas how to improve things, then you can get in touch with us at Amsterdam@ServerlessDays.io or on Twitter or on Discord. All right. So goodbye, everyone. Have a nice night and speak to you soon.
Have a good evening. Good night, all.